trying to maintain a caseload, work full time, and take care of two aging parents grandparents at the same time. I mean, so it is a big issue of like, how do I actually do both at the same time?
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 391 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. So glad you're with me on this journey. And, it's amazing to me just to think that we're up to episode number 391 already. I look back at how the podcast has evolved over the years and how things have changed just from when I first started this particular podcast in 2017, which really, it won't be too long before we're at the 10-year mark if I make it that long and keep the podcast going that long. Have no plans not to, but so glad you're with me on this journey. And we're already making plans for our 400th episode, and probably what you'll notice is a bit of a facelift to the podcast and changing a little bit of the format and the logos and all that kind of stuff. And so, so stay tuned with all of that. I've got lots of great guests lined up between now and then. But I'm excited about that particular episode coming out before long. In this particular episode, I'm really excited for you to hear from Marissa Wells. I really enjoyed my conversation with Marissa, in that we covered a topic that's really kind of close and near to my heart, and that's just on caregiving while you're trying to run a practice. And I think for those of you that have been listening to the podcast for a while, I've shared a little bit of my journey in caring for my wife before she passed away in 2023, but how you maintain a practice and keep things going while you're still caring for people and grieving and all of that sort of thing. So we dive in a little deeper with that, and just I love getting Marissa's perspective and just the niche she's created just around that particular issue of being a caregiver. So we'll be getting to that here soon. One of the things that people ask me about is, do I do consulting? And so, yes, I do. And this year I'm really focusing on really doing more one-on-one consulting with people. And if you're interested in finding out about how you can work with me, just doing some individual consulting, if you'll just go to the website, practiceoftherapy.com, and if you'll click on that link or that button that just says coaching and consulting, that'll get you to the landing page to find out more about how I do that and the process in which I work with people. So be sure and check that out. And also, before we get to my conversation with Marissa, I'd love for you to hear from one of the members of the Psychcraft network, along with some words from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
Hey there, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins. If you don't know us yet, we're the hosts of the Shrink Think podcast, which bridges the gap between therapists and clients.
The Shrink Think podcast is proudly part of the Psychcraft podcast network, focused on helping people live more meaningful and productive lives.
Join us every Wednesday in our engaging, informative conversations and lighthearted humor to help you normalize and demystify therapy for those beginning or continuing their mental health journey.
We discuss everything from understanding styles of therapy to addressing conflict with your counselor, learning about attachment styles, and the fear triangle. We seek to run the gamut of topics to pull back the curtain and empower effective therapy.
If you haven't listened yet, you can find us at shrinkthink.com/podcast and discover other resources, including educational videos and fun swag at our swag shop.
Rachel here with a quick shout out to TherapyNotes, the EHR that Gordon uses and loves for running his group practice. If you've ever been looking for a solid, all-in-one platform to manage your notes, scheduling, billing, and even secure client messaging, this is it. Gordon's been using TherapyNotes for years, and it's honestly made a huge difference in how smooth things run behind the scenes. He's always saying how it saves him time and keeps everything organized, and as a practice owner, that's huge. And get this, they've just rolled out Therapy Fuel, which is an amazing suite of AI tools that help write your notes faster. You can generate progress notes from session summaries or even from transcriptions. You can also create contact notes straight from secure messages and automatically summarize client history forms. Basically, it's like having a little documentation assistant built right in. Plus, TherapyNotes is always adding new features like automated payments, secondary insurance billing, and a growing library of outcome measures. And if you ever get stuck, their customer service is phenomenal. Seriously, you can call or email 24/7 and talk to someone who actually knows what they're doing. So, if you've ever been thinking about switching or just getting started, now's a great time. Head over to therapynotes.com, click Start My Free Trial, and use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free. All right, back to the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm happy for you to get to know today Marissa Wells. Welcome, Marissa. Glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Gordon.
Yes. And as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Yeah, so I am a professional counselor in Arkansas and a clinical supervisor for newly licensed therapists. And I'm located in Central Arkansas, and I mainly help aging families navigate aging issues from a relationship standpoint, end of life issues, how to make decisions for our family members that are difficult. And my main focus is to help them stay intact at the end, because there's a lot of things that can go awry in kind of the aging family dynamic, especially with siblings or other family members. So one of my main goals is to help kind of process anticipatory grief and be as prepared as we can for end of life and even after.
Right. Yeah. And the people that have been listening to the podcast for a while know a little bit of my story, as far as been through the very similar situation, in that my wife was in hospice care and we lost her in 2023. But yeah, maintaining a practice and keeping things going and all of that is a difficult thing.
Yeah, definitely, when you have to maintain life, but also it seems to stand still at the same time. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
Right. So what got you interested in kind of that niche, if you will?
Yeah.
Or niche, however you want to say that.
I know, niche. I think it could be said both ways. So my own family, actually, and it's kind of crazy how it transpired over time. It probably began when I was 19 years old when my great-grandmother passed away. And I was the only one present when she did pass away. And so it was a very significant spiritual moment of my life. And it just got me intrigued about, okay, how did we get here? How does this happen? What happens after, those big questions? And over time, life happens. And then I had a family, and then I decided to go back to grad school to help people. We had a family crisis, and it just kind of made me realize of I just need to help people who are in our situation, similar situations as we are. And so I went back to grad school. And then when I was in grad school, I met a professor who specialized in geriatric psychology. And I just fell in love with the idea of an older population. And I've always had like this kindred spirit. I'm a very mature personality. I can talk to anybody. And so I just fell in love with the geriatric population. And, when you first start out in counseling practice, no one tells you that you can actually work with the people you want to work with. It's always you got to go into agency work. You got to get your hours. You got to, you can't really do what you want to do. You just need to get a job, get your hours and move forward. Mm-hmm. And so I wish someone would have told me and poured into me and said, no, you're capable of working with the population you want to work with. You don't have to do it the way everyone else does it. And mm-hmm. so when I'm working with new clinicians, that's what I focus on with them is like, who do you want to help? What sets your soul on fire? Like that, those are the people you want to start navigating and gravitating towards. And so after I got done with my LAC work, I built a group private practice. And it was kind of the same thing of like, I just needed to help people who walked through the door. And so I never really got to touch exactly who I wanted to work with. Plus, as an LPC, luckily that legislation has changed, but I never could work with the Medicare population. My license did not make it so that I could be credentialed with Medicare to work with the geriatric population. So it was kind of like, well, it's a good idea. It's a good dream, but like, is that actually going to come to fruition? And in my group practice, I definitely got to work with several older adults. And it just kind of reminded me of that first love of like, oh yeah, like this is what gets me going. And then in my own family, my other grandparents began showing signs of dementia and navigating with my parents on how to care for them and decisions we needed to make as a family. So uniquely, my dad and my mom are only children. And I'm their only child. And so it was a very collaborative, like we were all we had to make these decisions. And so we relied a lot on each other. And so even with how well my family communicates, there were still things that I was like, okay, if this were me and I was making a decision, I would do it differently. And so it just started me on this trajectory of like, what would this look like if I did this in my counseling practice and helped people? I can speak the language. I know exactly what they're going through because we went through it. And so, and it all looked differently in my family, like different severities of dementia, or one wasn't as severe and still functioning, and cancer diagnoses and things like that. And so, yeah, it just was like, okay, it just opened my eyes. And then I sold my group practice and I was like, okay, if I'm going to do it, now's the time. Like it was a definitely open door that I took, and I started just promoting myself as an aging family therapist and connecting with people. And I've been fortunate to, put my foot in the door at assisted living facilities. And recently I have become in network with Medicare because that legislation has changed. And so I'm excited. I'm like ready to go. I really didn't want to do insurance, but it was this decision of like, okay, if I want to work with the people I want to work with, this is kind of what I need to do for them. And so, yeah. And then here I am today, just trying to get the word out on how important it is for us to talk about aging family issues.
Yes. And I having experienced it with my parents and then, with a wife, I think it's one of those things. It's never something we want to have to do. But when it does come, being able to get that balance between, particularly if you're in private practice, that balance of, how do I continue to see clients, or do I take time off, or what do I need to do in order to take care of myself and my family, that sort of thing. And so in your work with, I guess, supervisees, but also in working with people in general, because it's not only unique to counselors and therapists, but, any sort of, as adults, taking care of aging parents and that sort of thing, and finding that work-life balance kind of thing. What are what are the things that you're running into as you work with people around these things?
Yeah, it really is kind of the decisions of, I have to work, I have to do these things, but I also feel like I have to, be at these doctor's appointments and for my family members. And in fact, I have a supervisee right now who's going through it. She is responsible for decisions with her grandparents. And so she's a new therapist and trying to maintain a caseload, work full time, and take care of two aging parents grandparents at the same time. I mean, so it is a big issue of like, how do I actually do both at the same time? And I don't like to use the word balance because I think that it's like this pivot point on a balance. It's almost like a harmony, if I make this decision, I need to see how it impacts other areas of life. And if I make this decision, what does that look like too? So making decisions as they come instead of putting like a pressure point of, okay, I can only see X number of clients to feel in harmony. You may be able to do it all based on your resiliency, your coping mechanisms, and so it just depends on the person, really.
Right. I heard somebody describe it as finding a different life rhythm, which I like that way of thinking about it as well.
I do too. And really, when you think about rhythm and harmony, you have to prioritize things a little bit different. And I think that's what people struggle with the most is what was priority yesterday is not priority today.
Right.
It's all important. All of it is important and equally important. But what is top priority today that I have to get done or have to decide, and what can wait until tomorrow? And so it's an active decision-making process, which comes into this really proactive grieving too. When you're being cognizant of these decisions, you're grieving proactively without knowing it. And so I try to help clients and therapists who I touch in this area, because I have people call me all the time. My mom and my grandma, it's constant, because everybody needs this help. We're all going to face an aging parent or an aging family member. We're not going to get away from it. And so how do we do it well, I think is a big question people ask.
Right. Yeah. So in just thinking about that, how does one do it well, would you say?
Well, I automatically go clinically and think about functioning. But that's almost like that's like when things aren't well. Like if I'm not functioning well, I know I'm not well. But to do it well is to really maintain those boundaries of, am I sleeping okay? I'm not saying am I sleeping perfect, but if I'm not able to lay down and sleep at night, what's on my mind and how do I cope with that? How do I say yes to things that bring me joy? I think that is a component of doing things well, is to still maintain that sense of joy of doing things you like to do. Or even if you can't go do the things, it's remembering the things you like to do. Don't lose your sense of identity in the midst of caring for others.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
So I was out of town visiting my family the other week. My sister has the most incredible pool. The way that I jumped right in and started swimming with the quickness, because listen, I don't have to stop everything and shave anymore. And it's all thanks to Ideal Image. No stress, no stubble. Hello, no packing razors on vacation. It is everything. In July, laser hair removal specials are almost gone. So book your free consultation today at idealimage.com or from your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Ideal Image.
I would add to that is really drawing on supports and
Absolutely.
find, the people that say, well, let me know what I can do. Well, take them up on that. And, there are some that might not follow through on that, but I know in my own experience, that's the only way I made it through. And, and I think too, I think with if you're in practice and you have clients, is making you don't have to tell them a whole lot, but just being able to say, this is the situation I'm in right now. And so, you might need to be, I would ask you to be a little bit flexible with me. My schedule might change abruptly. I might have to, cancel at the last minute or any of those kinds of things, but I just want to let you know up front. And I found that most all the clients that I had, in fact, all of my clients were very understanding. And I think it also gives that little bit of disclosure really helps kind of create some genuineness about you.
Absolutely. And a humanness. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that is a wonderful point of just being transparent. And I would say if you have friends or family that are going through this thing as well, we always say, let me know how I can help. But I like to encourage people to think about, how do you feel most skilled to help? For me personally, it's I can go in and do your dishes. I can do your laundry. And so I'll offer, hey, I'm available on Wednesday afternoon. I would love to be able to come do your dishes and laundry. And not many people have turned me down for that. That is a practical way. Yeah. Like if I know someone is struggling, I'm not going to say, let me know how I can help. I'm going to say, here's my boundary of my time frame, and I want to help you in this specific way.
Right. Or if you need, can I pick your kids up for school?
That's it. Or, hey, I want to take the kids out to dinner, give you a night off or whatever. Like, I want to do that for you. Absolutely. If you can figure out a practical way, but I think where people can get burned out on helping others is when we don't provide that boundary of like, okay, I've been gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. I probably shouldn't say I can help you on Thursday night, but to really navigate that in a true boundary and a healthy boundary kind of sense.
Right. Yeah. And you also mentioned just allowing ourselves to grieve and creating space for that. And I think that's so important. I was talking with somebody this past week, just talking about grief, and that grief is not something you get over; it's something you move through. And so, being able to think about it in that way, and that you're going to have what I call meltdown days or meltdown moments, and just allow yourself to do that.
Yeah. And to actually feel, I actually had someone say that last week about, I feel like I should be over it by now. And, we talk about like, what makes you think that, what expectations do you have of yourself, that kind of thing. This is something you've never been through. So how can you know that you should be over, just kind of challenging those belief systems about what grief is and what grief isn't.
Yes. That's good. I like that. So to switch gears a little bit, I know, Marissa, one of the things you enjoy doing is supervising new therapists and helping integrate them into practice and learning about private practice and that sort of thing. So say some things about that.
Yeah. Well, one of the first questions I ask a supervisee when they, become a supervisee of mine is I just say, who do you want to work with? And it's usually I just want to help people. And so I really try to get them to dig in on, reflecting on their own life and what has impacted them the most. Typically, our preferred population is kind of relevant to our own life. Like we are our best client. And so because we can really speak to the internal dialogue that someone has. And so really challenging them on who set your soul on fire. If you could do anything and money wasn't a problem. So we gotta kind of go through like miracle questioning and kind of open up the mind about who they want to work with. And I love it. I love it so much. I think there's a lot of limiting beliefs when you first start out in therapy that you're less than, you're not equal to a seasoned clinician. And so, I mean, I know some seasoned clinicians that probably aren't as well equipped as a new clinician. And so I try to kind of help them fight through all of those negative perceptions about themselves.
Right. Yeah. It is, I know for me, I've been doing this a long time. And when you figure out what your niche is, if you figure out what you're passionate about, it makes you a much better clinician, actually.
Absolutely.
I think. Yeah, because you really understand whether it's something that's happened to you personally or you've been through yourself. But yeah, you just have much more insight into things, and yeah, it just goes a long way. So
yeah, and I think it can change. We often think that it's a forever decision, and it's not.
Yeah, it absolutely. Well, Marissa, I know we've got to be thinking about our time here, but tell folks a little bit more about some of the work you do outside of therapy. I know you're doing some consulting and working with newer therapists and that kind of thing. So
I actually have a free resource group. It's called the Aging Family on Facebook, and it's just a free resource for people to use. I'm just trying to get, this is going to be a huge demographic issue that we're seeing in the next 20 years where we're all going to be facing this aging family issue. And so I just want a place for people to go to find the resources that they need. I am consulting with assisted living facilities and physicians in our area about how to integrate mental health with kind of the geriatric population and how to help caregivers and family members who may be struggling. And so, I do a lot of trainings and consulting and coaching too, really, for individuals who maybe don't want individual therapy, but can find usefulness in some of the things that I offer.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a much needed niche and a much needed service that you're providing there, because until you go through it, you really don't. People, I think it's something we put out of mind, but when you go through it, knowing how to navigate and getting the support you need is so important.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, tell folks how they can get in touch with you and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So my website is mwells.co, not .com. I found that people try to go to .com, but it's mwells.co. And you can find all of my clinical and supervision things on my website. And then my free resource group on Facebook is facebook.com/The Aging Family. And so that's where I'm located. And Psychology Today as well. I'm on there for clinical issues too.
Sure. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for folks to get to that easily. So, well, Marissa, I enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gordon.
Well, again, a big thanks to Marissa for joining me on the podcast, and I hope to maybe have her back on the show at some point. I think this is, the longer you live and the more life can hand you, I think it's important to be able to know how to navigate all of this, particularly as a practice owner, because despite the fact that we're experts in mental health and managing some of the crises that can come up for us in life, particularly with our clients, it can also happen to us. And so I think being able to be prepared and just thinking about how you're going to practice some self-care if life hands you some tough stuff. And so again, check out Marissa's things. You'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary. And big thanks to Marissa for joining me. Also, I'd love for you to find out more about TherapyNotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice. And as I've said before, I'm just constantly impressed with the platform they provide. One feature that they have gotten down pat pretty quickly here is the use of AI for assisting you in writing your progress notes. And it has been a drastic game changer for me in my practice and my clinicians, and just really cutting down on the time it takes for them to create progress notes and document their sessions. So be sure and check out TherapyNotes. And if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, you can try them out for 2 months for free. And I think you'll like them if you try it out. So be sure and check that out. And also take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, and leave us a review. Love getting feedback on the podcast and just how we can maybe make things better. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be coming up on our 400th episode, and I think it's going to be a fun one. So be sure and follow us so you can find out when that comes out. But that's a wrap for this particular episode, and look forward to being with you again next week and some more great guests on the Practice of Therapy podcast. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.
Did you know Tide has been upgraded to provide an even better clean in cold water? Tide is specifically designed to fight any stain you throw at it, even in cold. Butter? Yep. Chocolate ice cream? Sure thing. Barbecue sauce? Tide's got you covered. You don't need to use warm water. Additionally, Tide Pods let you confidently fight tough stains with new Coldzyme technology. Just remember, if it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide.